My name is Jason T. Ingram. I live in Oregon. I'm doing a video log of a time in my life where I am starting a business and doing the things that I love to do, trying to make a living out of it, finally. So anyways, this week was a real milestone in this stuff that I'm doing here. I finally got a business license, so now I'm going to get all this crazy marketing and all these phone calls from people trying to scam me because I'm on the registry now as an Oregon LLC. And to get to that point, though, unless you suffer daily with anxiety and depression and mania and issues with personality and moods and all this kind of stuff, these things, might make people a little nervous. They might get a little confused. But for some people, it's fucking agony. I mean, it really is. I don't know if I want to be totally honest about how things have been going, but it's like the more I proceed with this stuff, it doesn't get any easier. In fact, it gets harder. And I have such a hard time dealing with people and a lot of the things I'm realizing because I try to explain why things suck so badly so much and why it's so hard for me to do things that basically a lot of other people say, hey, if you want to start a business and get your music out there, you follow A, B, C, D. Those don't work for me. Those really don't. I've tried those things several times in my life. And people just keep telling me that I have to just keep, getting gigs and keep putting myself out there. And it's very different when you're in a very low social status. And it's not necessarily an economic status. It's a popularity contest. And the people that are able to get a lot of exposure because they're very good at being social and they're very good at getting attention from other people and making other people happy or telling them what they want to hear or being able to make friends or be able to have, host parties and get a lot of people over. I'm just not one of those kinds of people. I stay home most of the time. I don't have big parties, and if I do, I invite a whole bunch of people and hardly anybody shows up. I'm just not good at being social, and it's hard. I've always wanted to be. I always admire people that do, and it's just something I have to live with. But I have to compensate for the fact that I don't quite have that privilege. And because I don't have that privilege, I realized that, you know, having skill and knowledge, experience, and talent really doesn't matter that much in the entertainment industry, as I'm sure a lot of people have noticed. One of the things that really touched me a couple months ago was I went to go see a concert, and I did some schmoozing, I admit it, because it was a scene I was trying to tap into. It was like experimental composers, and I'm like, oh my god, this is totally my thing. So I met a couple people there, and they give me this thing. And what it is it's a passive-aggressive no. Also called the Seattle no, or basically the West Coast cowardly way of saying, I'm not interested in what you're doing, I don't want to know about what you're doing, and I'd rather you leave me alone. But instead they say, oh great, I'd love to, here's my email, here's my phone, call me or whatever, and then they fucking disappear. The problem is when you run into these types of people later, they have to come up with all these excuses why they did that. And I wish they would just say, hey, I isolated you, I ignored you, I lied to you. Even if they don't say I'm sorry, at least they would acknowledge how they treat people, especially if they know that I'm on disability for mental health issues. Because if they knew that, then they might understand the fact that people like me get that all the time. And after a while, it gets exhausting. So tonight, it's Groundhog's Day. It's 1:45. I'm missing Stephen Colbert. I don't know why. I love him. But I decided I was going to email and contact some people about opening up for their bands with my band. And I found out that we got over 600 plays on our SoundCloud, which is really cool. And we're starting to get a couple listeners from Europe, which is also really, really super fucking cool. And at the same time, when it comes to all these bands and artists in Portland, they're typically the ones that have a lot of social status, that have a lot of friends, that have a reputation for, being popular and making things happen and stuff like that too. And I do the same kind of work that I do, and I can count on one hand how many people I get for the same kind of work that other people do. And so I'm trying to get over this hump, and I'm having to also heal from a lot of things that I feel like I'm being treated unfairly. And I'm experimenting with a lot of things. I'm really trying to also take this as an opportunity to do my life activism. The more I tell people about who I am, it breaks down stigma for them and for me. It helps me to get out of my fear and my shame and all this kind of shit that I've lived with for so long. And it also helps me to realize which people I can trust and which people I don't want to trust. I also want to not give up on people so easily because somebody told me today that, I was complaining about how so many people don't even give me a try, don't even give me a chance to even show what I can do. And then I did the same thing with this guy, and he turns out to be, amazing, and I misjudged him. So, but then again, I wish people would at least give me a try, or even a second try, or a third try, because it's so easy that people see me as being somebody that's going to make them look bad, or somehow a threat to themselves or their career, or whatever it is. And I tend to trigger people's egos, too. If they have a huge ego, then there's a tendency, it's a long story, but it has to do with the fact that I don't hide my big ego. And that I kind of make fun of myself about it too. And since I am so I have the personality of kind of like a kid that comes up and's trying to sell you a newspaper or something like that. So I don't have this, hey, I'm so cool, man. You're going to listen to my music. You're going to love it. It's like, I don't have that kind of magical charm. So I give people this impression that I'm something that I'm not. And then if they ever do, dig deep into the content and the media, the material that I do come out, that I've just done all this creative stuff over the years, then sometimes I really deliver and it kind of freaks them out. And then there's this thing too, where people really get jealous because when they find out that I can actually outdo them creatively, which happens, especially with people that are really insecure, because some people that don't have talent are really scared the fact that they're relying on their charm and not on their abilities. They're using the abilities of other people. There's a lot of Steve Jobs type creative people who they just use other people's talents, and they're more of a facilitator, more of a business type. And those people are okay as long as they're not the Steve Jobs tyrant, as long as they're the visionary type. And I've been around, some tyrant type people before who are really charismatic and they can draw people to themselves. And then when things don't go their way, then it's really scary what happens. And it's the real hyper creative people that aren't necessarily the ones that are empowered in their business and have that kind of legal backing or the kind of, those are the people that usually suffer with these kinds of experiences too. So it's been really frustrating being an accompaniment, or an accompanist, I could say. And I think I've sort of branded myself over the last, 4 or 5 years as being an accompanist that can really deliver. When it comes to doing anything else, though, that's where it's really stirred up a lot of weird shit around me. And it reminds me of somebody, and I might talk about this more later, but gosh, I was mentioning somebody that I had met a couple months ago who was about 10 years older than me, and he was very low in social status and full of fears, and I just told him that if he just kind of face his demons and face all of his fears about what's keeping him from actually releasing and producing a lot of his creative stuff, then he could be successful at it. But he had a lot of demons to face, and it's hard. It's really, really hard to try to face everything that's getting in your way from you being successful. And that's what I'm doing.